Every week, Hillsdale College President Larry P. Arnn joins Hugh Hewitt to discuss great books, great men, and great ideas. This is the Hillsdale Dialogues, part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. Also at the Hillsdale College Podcast Network, check out the Radio Free Hillsdale Hour, the Hillsdale College K-12 Classical Education Podcast, The Larry P. Arnn Show, and more, all at podcast.hillsdale.edu.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I'll keep you posted on any breaking news. I do want you to read my Morning Glory column at Fox News, 10 Lessons from the Landslide. And it doesn't count the obvious one. The President-elect Trump's victory is the greatest political comeback story in American history. And I say that fully aware that until this time, my old boss, my second boss, Richard Nixon, was the greatest political comeback in American history. But this is bigger, because nobody shot Nixon in the head, and nobody impeached Nixon twice, and nobody prosecuted him across 5 jurisdictions wrongfully. So that's the biggest takeaway. These are 10 additional takeaways. And if you want to find it, it's at X. On Friday last, after the election, I did my Hillsdale Dialogue with Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College. We barely covered a half of what we wanted to, so I kept him around and we continued talking. I'm going to spool out that today and tomorrow. Here is the second half, or part one of the second half of my conversation with Dr. Larry Arnn, all things Hillsdale, at hillsdale.edu. Dr. Arnn, I have not spoken to you, and nor do I intend to talk at length about this, but I quit the Washington Post 2 weeks ago, I guess now. And I'm done with legacy media. I have tried for decades to try and make it fair, but I'm done with it. And I'm not going to spend any more time on it. I'd like what your assessment of what the media was doing. Mary Catherine Ham said they were gaslighting us for a month about the Puerto Rico joke, about Donald Trump being a dictator, about fascism. They were gaslighting us. And do you think it can be saved? I'm done trying. I'm into alternative media now. I do my show. I do the Hillsdale Dialogues, I post, and I direct people to podcasts. But what about the legacy media? Do you think it can be rehabilitated?
Well, first of all, it's not my habit, as our listeners know, to praise you, but you did a great thing there. You got up and walked out.
I'm not looking for compliments. You never do, thank you. But I'm
telling you. I said, that Hugh, he's meaner than hell. That was very good. And you flummoxed them when you did it too. Good for you. Little indignation goes a long way. Well placed. Yeah, the point is, if you saw the weeping and gnashing of teeth as the results became clear, if you saw the horror on the face of some of the major broadcasters, there was no coolness. There was no dispassionate, let's understand what's happening here. There was in some of them, but in many of them, it was just open grief. And Lord, they've been calling the guy Hitler all week long, and not all week long, years long now. But remember, they also called George W. Bush that frequently, and he's a killer. And
Bush lied, people died. I hated that.
Yeah.
Bush never lied. He was mistaken, but he did not lie.
Yeah, and was he really?
Dr.
I mean.
Think
we go into all that. Yeah. So the point is,
let me crystallize the question. Do they believe their own theater, or is it theater? Because I am now genuinely confused. I think their grief was real, which would suggest they really believe that Trump is a threat to their freedom, and I just can't believe they believe that. That would reveal a level of ignorance so astonishing as to startle even me.
Some of the writers, especially, are obviously highly intelligent people. And and to get where they are, they have to have lots of virtues of character and resilience, that word we've been using. And so what I believe is they are persuaded of something. and that justifies them working to change the society. They're on a side, and they don't have that habit of, I mean, you and I both have the experience of hostile articles written about us by important people. And I have, to the best of them, whom I won't name right now, I said one time, you're bound to criticize us because we don't have enough black people. And also because we don't know how many we have. We actually have quite a few, but I don't know how many. Don't believe in that. I said, if you're going to criticize me for that, and if you're what you say you are, which is attempting to be honest, you should make my argument and then refute it, or get somebody to quote to refute it. But my argument is simple. If the human being is capable of rational thought, he must have an immaterial soul. That's an argument from Aristotle. And things that don't have matter don't have color. And so to think that is important in learning, if I did that, I would give up the central argument as a first step, and I will never do it. And I said the test of your article will be, do you put that argument in there? And she didn't. And
I know. They always fail. They always fail the test. And that leads me to my next question. We are going to turn a page, and you referred to this on Friday with the election of Senator Vance as vice president-elect. Donald Trump will finish his term, and then a new generation of leadership. And I don't know that J.D. Vance will be the nominee of the Republican Party in 2028, and you don't know, and there are many fine people in the party. But I know one thing, the generation has changed. Donald Trump is the last he wasn't even a boomer. He's old enough to be like Biden pre-boom, but the boomers are gone now, and they will not physically, but they will pass from the halls of power. You have been spending 20 years educating a generation of people who I hope flock to Washington in this administration and do great things. Do you think they will?
Well, I think that we're in, one of the great dramas of the American Republic, and it has just, because of the election, intensified yet again. And so we're going to have the argument now. And I think I said last time that Vance is important, and the reason is he's very articulate and good at making fundamental arguments. And I think he's going to make these. And so good on him. And the point is, what you can assure in politics, if you're brave and far-seeing and eloquent and live your life right, as the best statesmen are, and they're few, you can present the choice in clear terms. It's for the people to figure it out. And that's why you were so indignant with the Washington Post when you stalked out on them. Because you said gaslighting, and what that word means is, what does it mean? It means not telling them.
To confuse reality with your fiction, and not to present facts, and to make other people think what are not facts are facts by turning up the gas and making them lightheaded.
That's it. And they it was a great movie about that.
Yes.
So that's that. I think that they think that they are doing their duty, but that has changed the definition of journalism. See,
I should make a note here, because I don't want to talk about the Post, because I never talk about my old colleague. But Ruth Marcus is a friend of mine, and she's an old school liberal who went to Harvard Law School, who has really great journalistic chops, and she was caught unawares by that exchange. She had no part of it. I don't want her to be hit by the shrapnel. We have no problem with old school liberals, and my best friends are Democrats and old school liberals. I have a problem with the media and where it is right now, and I just don't know that it can be saved. I also am encouraged. For 20 years, you've been piloting this institution. I just want to know if they're willing to go and serve, and it's not going to be easy. The left isn't going to go away. A lot of it is secular, and it's all that they've got. In the meantime, we've got Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party, Putin, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, lots of spies, lots of terrorists. We got problems.
Yeah.
We need leadership. Do we have enough young leaders to do that?
I think I'm watching excitement for the moves of Elon Musk, if he makes them, because he seems to really know how to run a railroad so well that he's going to run the dang thing to Mars. And I know him a little bit, and think he's a complete force of nature. I walked around the Tesla plant with him. My wife and I did. And one of his friends, a guy named Sam. And
okay. Wait. Stop. We got to pause and set this up. Tell us when you took a tour. I mean, what year did you walk around a Tesla? I've never heard this. I've known you forever. When did this happen?
It happened in 2017. In January.
Oh my goodness!
I went to the White House to see Mike Pence, who's a buddy of mine, and a fine man who got put in a bad spot. I went in there. I hadn't been in the White House for 8 years. Wonder why.
If you're passionate about classical education and you're looking for the next step, Hillsdale College's Diana Davis Spencer Graduate School of Classical Education is now offering 2 master's degree programs. These programs provide students with a broad philosophical, historical, literary, and pedagogical perspective on classical education. The Master of Arts in Classical Education is a 2-year in-person program on Hillsdale's campus in Michigan, while the Master of Classical Education Leadership is a 3-year hybrid program with a 1-week summer class held at Hillsdale College. Whether you're interested in teaching, administration, or another area within the field of classical education, we're prepared to offer you a foundational, time-proven approach to your studies. We want to see your application soon. Applications must be submitted on or before December 15th, 2024 for full consideration. To learn more and submit your application, visit classicalgrad.hillsdale.edu. That's classicalgrad.hillsdale.edu.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. On Friday, Dr. Larry Arnn joined me for the Hillsdale Dialogue, and he stayed longer because we were covering the election and the aftermath. And I said I'm going to play it all on today, and let's go back to the tape where I discover that he knows Elon Musk. Tell us when you took a tour. I mean, what year did you walk around a Tesla? I've never heard this. I've known you forever. When did this happen?
It happened in 2017 in January.
Oh my goodness!
I went to the White House to see Mike Pence, who's a buddy of mine, and a fine man who got put in a bad spot. I went in there. I hadn't been in the White House for 8 years. Wonder why. And so it's the first week, and I walk in there, and a bunch of Hillsdale kids are working there. There are hundreds who live in Washington, D.C. and work in the government. And they saw my name on the rota, and they came out, and we had a chat in the reception room in the West Wing. And we're just talking. It's fun. Oh, wow, look at you. What are you doing here? And he is staring at us. And I said...
Elon Musk.
Yeah. And I said, you are Elon Musk. And he said, well, I'm not. I said, matter of fact, you are. And he comes over and says, and who are you? And I said, well, I am the president of the greatest college on earth, and these are my kids. And he said, they don't look like kids to me. And I said, to you, sir, they are authorities. They are kids to me.
I've never heard that story.
Oh, I love that story. So anyway, he said, come see me. So I go out there. And what was it like? I mean, there were sleeping bags in the conference room, in the factory on the executive floor, which is not, it's part of a factory, right? The factory is very fancy and cool. You see pictures of it, but they're sleeping bags. And I stared at them, and he said, yep. He said, we're in manufacturing hell right now. And I said, Model 3. He said, yeah, make or break. And I said, well, I hope you make it. And he said, well, it's been hard because we had to figure out how to make a car.
I want to pause here. One of the most inspiring moments of the last many years is the chopsticks moment when Musk grabs the rocket. You and I had never seen that before, and we are older men, and we grew up in the space age, and we had never seen anything like that before. And for Elon Musk to be for you, and by the way, he stood with me during my recent controversy, which was nice. I don't know the man. I've only been in the room with him once listening to him talk, and I'm not an engineer, but I think you're igniting in me the sort of optimism I'm prone to. He excites me, and I hope they tap into that and harness that, because America can boom. It can just absolutely boom again if we unleash it.
Yeah. He's and see, I'll tell two more Musk stories that are my favorites. I asked him about this one. He went in. He founded the Boring Company, right? And that's a play on words, and very like him to think of that name. And why did he do it? He was at SpaceX, which is where, close to the airport in LA, where the freeways come together. And he sees that the freeways are all around him. He's looking at them, and they're all crowded. And he said, we went up for offices. We should have gone down. And so he goes in and he orders the 3 largest German boring machines. And by the time they arrived, he hired himself a bunch of engineers to make them faster. And because you gotta go fast. And so they arrive on big trucks, and he gets one of them off the truck, gets it set up, and says, "Let's fire this baby up." And they just go, right in the grounds of SpaceX. And I just think that's just perfect. That's
in California, it could be a little bit dangerous, but that's up to him to deal with the under nuisance law.
Oh yeah.
If you do,
I'm not going to give any testimony against him, but no, I don't think he got a permit, and so and then he takes over Twitter, and he fires. I think he fired more than half the staff, or they left. They just didn't want to work for him. I think he let them go, and he did let a lot go. But some of them did did what I did and just said, "I don't want to work for you." But he has proven it was really top heavy, and because it's fine, and they hate him now. He has made himself an enemy of the administrative state, and the administrative state, including the California Coastal Commission, wants to punish him. It's crazy. Government ought not to have an emotion of revenge, unless it's the. There's this thing in Europe going on that the rulers of all things have a digital division, and they have threatened him about an interview he did with Donald Trump, candidate for president, on Twitter. And the threat is that they can fine him up to 5% of his global revenues. I read yesterday of all his companies. So in other words, they're controlling the media. And I said last time that the fundamental question is, what is the title to rule? That's always, by the way, the fundamental question in politics. It's always that. If you're a political scientist, you learn to ask 2 questions every time you look at any nation to figure out how it works. And the first is, who rules? And the second is, how do they get to do it? In the name of what principle do they get to do it?
Huh.
And so in ours, equal souls, consent of the governed, equipped by nature to guide our lives and organize our government. That's the original idea. Very beautifully put in the Declaration of Independence. The new idea is humanity is capable of making progress through science, and so the scientist and scientific methods and those who apply them have a claim to sovereignty, that is to say, the legitimate title to rule. So when they call Donald Trump a dictator, often they mean, and if you just read carefully, they say this frequently, often they mean he doesn't follow the administrative process. He thinks he's the president elected by the sovereign people. That's the argument, see. And that argument has been going on in America for 150 years, something like that. And, I've said before, I think on the show, but I'll say it now. This progressive idea of government got institutionalized in the popular branches of government with the election of Franklin Roosevelt in 1932. And so it's very instructive to compare the shape, just the big form of the government in 1930, a census year before he came in, with today. And in 1930, the government was 12% of the gross domestic product. Now it's 51% in 1930. And remember, that's an adjustment between private and public activity. And in a liberal society, that is critical, right? Liberal society means you're free. You can do what you want to. Take care of yourself, be good to your neighbors, bear your own cause. Yeah.
Obey the law.
So that we've taken, 12? We've taken 38% of the economy, the biggest economy in the world, and we've moved it into the public sector. And then we did a second thing. In 1930, more than 60% of the money raised and spent in government was raised and spent in cities and counties and towns. Now that number is under 20%. The federal government, if I remember the number right, was 23% in 1930, and now it's 63%. So we've moved the money inside the government farther away from the people and their direct needs. And so that's a revolution, right? And that is entrenched in, with a whole class of people who work in that. And it affects the academy because the doctrines that justify that movement, that is, there has to be some principle behind it. Why is this a good thing to do, right? And that was born in the academy, and it tends to make college professors and colleges into rulers instead of monks. I like to say a really great college professor has something akin to a monk because he's gotten deep inside something and he pursues it his whole life, and all he does is talk about it. And it's something eternal, and that's so not that anymore, right? And it affects business because your government, by definition, now it's, half the economy passes through the hands of the government one way and another. In business, the government is in principle your biggest customer, and your biggest customer has regulatory power over you. And that means it affects industry too. And then I want to just make the thing sharp. I've tried to repeat accurately the claim of a good that leads to this movement, which is we can make untold progress if we place everything in the hands of scientific methods. That's the argument. Here's the counter.
Yes.
It's in James Madison, and that is, government is the profoundest of all commentaries on human nature. If men were angels, no government would be needed. If angels were to govern men, neither internal nor external controls on the government would be necessary. And the thing is, what I believe, my argument, me and many people, is that they thought that the scientifically trained people in the government who have tenure and guaranteed salaries would not have any personal interest in serving anything except the public good. That's what they write that. There's a guy named Landis who writes that because they won't have any interest, they will only act justly. Well,
oh my goodness.
And what? If you look up the top 10, I haven't done it lately, but if you look up the top 10 contributors in politics, public employee unions are very high.
So, okay, stop it right there. We'll come back and finish my conversation with Dr. Arnn from Friday in the next hour. All things Hillsdale, by the way, are at hillsdale.edu. This is not a sponsored segment. But if you want to know about Hillsdale, go to hillsdale.edu. If you want to hear all my conversations with Dr. Arnn, 800 of them, Hugh4Hillsdale.com. From the book of Job and Plato to the present day, it's all at Hugh4Hillsdale.com.
It's no secret that Americans are more divided than ever. And it's not just over what policies will improve our great country. No, it's over whether America is great at all, whether America deserves our love. That's why Imprimis is so important. Imprimis looks at the issues of the day from a constitutional perspective, reminding citizens always of our great heritage of liberty. For more than 50 years, Imprimis has featured speeches from the smartest conservative thinkers and writers at Hillsdale events. These days, Hillsdale publishes people like Molly Hemingway, Andy Puzder, Harmeet Dillon, and Chris Rufo. Over 6.4 million American households and businesses receive Imprimis absolutely free. And I urge you to sign up for it today at no charge. To get your free lifetime subscription, go to hillsdale.edu/lifetime right now. Or text the word Imprimis to 71844 and we'll send you a link to sign up for your free lifetime subscription. That's IMPRIMIS to 71844.
Welcome back, America. The music you were listening to is Requiem for Solace by Kim Andre Arnson, and it was composed in 2014. It's fabulous stuff, so I've been using it all day. I heard it for the first time this weekend. Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College, was my guest on Friday, but we went long. We talked for another full hour, and here's the conclusion of that conversation. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu, but this is not a Hillsdale Dialogue, not sponsored by Hillsdale. I just want to give it to you for free. But I want to finish by talking with you. I've always said the Constitution matters because it protects our ability to speak, and it protects our ability to pray and to believe. And I believe the Christian gospel is true, and I want people to know it and hear it, and I do not want to be interfered in my ability to tell people about it. And I think that the administrative state is hostile to religious belief by virtue of what it is and the claims that religious belief makes. And religious belief is cabined because of the Establishment Clause, but it is vibrant because of the Free Exercise Clause. I think that we saw the Catholics dramatically shift to Donald Trump. It's the one crosstab I have studied. It's enormous. Now, Joe Biden is a Catholic, and so he appealed to Catholics to vote for him in 2020, whatever their doctrinal differences on things like abortion, and it was not without effect. But there was no appeal made on faith by the vice president. I don't know what her faith system is. I just believe that faith matters so much to the Constitution that it's there to protect it. And I know what James Madison thought about religious liberty. Do you think, and this is a hard question, do you think our country is becoming so secular that religious belief is going to be endangered in the next 25 years?
Yeah, it is endangered, but that's what the argument is about. And you see, remember, this, human beings, Churchill liked to say about people, unteachable from infancy to tomb. We got charmed into some arguments that looked really great. And now we have experience with them, right? Turns out these people are people. And it would be better if they would obey. And the only change you have to make is that the bureaucracy, which should be trimmed in the way that Elon Musk has gone about trimming, it should be trimmed because it's very expensive and it interferes with the operation of our lives. But the most important thing is that it understand that it must obey the will of the people expressed in their elected representatives. You see, that's the thing. Donald Trump was elected president of the United States in 2016. The Constitution gives him authority from us, which is the authority under its lights, and therefore he gets to appoint the Attorney General. And the head of the FBI is selected and responsible to his appointed official, and that means indirectly to the president. James Comey did not think he was working for Donald Trump. You see?
I agree.
And that's the point. That's the issue. If we can get that right, and the main reason I rejoice about this election is we're going to have an argument about that now, and I think that there will be articulate arguments made on both sides, and that sets up for the people to figure it out. And it's going to be.
I want to close with. It's going to be intense and it's going to be ongoing, and we're going to do it again and again, both by direct conversation and indirectly by discussing the Republic, for example, on Friday. I want to ask you, though, a lot of colleges and universities set up therapy rooms, basically. They were worried about the fragility of their students as the election approached. I wonder what was the campus like on election night in Hillsdale, because I doubt very much you prepared one way or the other because you trust your students. But what was the atmosphere like at Hillsdale, where I think if anyone is listening, that send your kids to Hillsdale, please. If they can get in, it's pretty hard to get into now. But what was it like?
It's just the same. There's a poll in the college paper that shows that most of our students were Trump supporters. And, I think Trump got a plurality of the grown-ups. But it wasn't a divisive thing, right? Because there are two, I don't like rules, but there are two practices. One is there's no whining at Hillsdale College. So
no crying in baseball, no whining at Hillsdale.
That's right. I love to say that. There's no whining at Hillsdale College, and they, they buck up when you say that to them mostly. And if somebody's in trouble, we got counselors and stuff. But if it was a whole lot of people, we couldn't manage it. They do. There is a group, by the way, that brings puppies onto campus from the Humane Society during finals, because finals are very stressful here, of which we're proud. And I don't mind.
Well, they ought to they ought to be stressful.
We get back to work, and so yeah, that's I did not think about that. In last spring, when the many elite colleges became unable to function. Remember, they couldn't have class.
Yes.
And I was gone all that week when it peaked. When it hit big, it peaked a little bit later, actually. And I thought, and I come back on Friday, and I said, I wonder if anybody's talking about that. And I hadn't sent anybody a note about anything. I hadn't told the security guys to pay attention. And I come back, and I go in the dining hall, and it's lunchtime, and I look across, and I listen for a minute, and I say, yep, this is still Hillsdale College. And then I had to, at lunch, I sat down with a bunch, and we were having a conversation. And I had to bring that up. Anybody think about that around here? And it wasn't on their minds. And they sort of looked up for a minute and said, yeah, we noticed that. So it's not, that's just stupid, isn't it? And it's
so healthy. It's such a healthy environment. It's the life of the mind as it's supposed to be done, and it's why Hillsdale is thriving and why Dr. Arnn gets my grudging admiration for all of his work over these 30 years. But I appreciate very much the extra time on Friday because we couldn't cover everything, and so we're putting on Tuesday. I want to remind everyone, everything at Hillsdale is at hillsdale.edu. Any new courses coming, Dr. Arnn, soon to the video?
3 or 4. And what are they? I don't know if we've released one on the totalitarian novels, but that's either just released or soon released. We're doing one on C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, I think.
Very good. Well, I hope that as the Trump transition team settles in, as they select people, I want them to go read to take the Constitution course. If you're going to work for Donald Trump, take the Constitution course.
I did talk to somebody from the transition team about education generally a month ago. And I got the impression that they're very orderly and they're thinking hard, and a lot of people working on it. And then they wanted to know what I think about education. And I think the most important thing is to decentralize control of it. And because the learning is in the student, and the teachers and the parents help. And so authority and resources in education should be as close to that process as possible. And right now, more than half the employees in public education are not teachers, and that looks to me like a misarrangement.
I hope they wrote that down.
Yeah,
because the spending power can make a lot of changes directly that are simply to retreat from the operation of the education system, to leave off with the bureaucrats micromanaging, never to do COVID again. But they can also tell states, if you want our money, you have to have a school choice option or support homeschooling. Because honestly, we've just got to get out of the business of demanding obedience from states. The federal government has no right to do that, but they have a right to condition their money. I hope that they do it wisely. Final, a quick question, because we're now out of time on the second hour. The Title IX controversy, I believe, was a sleeper issue. The boys and girls sports. Do you think it was?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people are alarmed about that. The rebellion against that broke into the national news in Loudoun County, Virginia, outside D.C., a blue place, and parents were very upset because they're changing the lives of their children without permission from the parents. And the children are minors. Who owns the children? See, that sovereignty issue I was talking about, that raises the question, who owns the children? Under the old doctrine of natural rights, the children own the children, and the parents act for them while they are minors, the people who love them the most and brought them into the world. In the new idea, children become something like factors of production. And the Republican Party has passed laws in education that imply that, as the Democratic Party has as well. So, yeah, the people don't, we need more kids in America. Everybody listen to the show. I don't know how many kids you got, but have some more. And
amen.
And we need parents to be responsible for them. And then they can grow up strong and good and be humans. So
it's a sacrifice, but it is one well worth doing. And on that note, part 2 of the election edition of the Hillsdale Dialogue, nonpartisan throughout, is complete. Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College. Thank you. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. All of our conversations, including part 1, can be found at hughforhillsdale.com.
Thanks for listening to the Hillsdale Dialogues, part of the Hillsdale College Podcast Network. More episodes at podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you find your audio. For more information about Hillsdale College, head to hillsdale.edu.